Hello everyone, my name is Silvia Romanò, Chief International Affairs of Centro Studi Galileo. We are in Milan at the 21st European Conference, and now we have the pleasure to have with us Russell Patten, Director General of EPEE.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russell, very much for your presentation. It was insightful, and especially it brings many topics of discussion. And first, I would like to start with maybe the challenges that you think we're going to face.
Good. Well, obviously, thank you, Silvia, for inviting me, and lovely to be back here. The weather's beautiful. We're all smiling. The challenges. It's interesting you use that because we really do feel, as the Refrigeration, Air Conditioning and Heat Pump Association across Europe, we have an enormous amount of challenges, not just from the F-gas regulation, but we've got eco-design, we've got a plethora of new policies coming out of the new European Commission, and we've got PFAS as well. I think it's fair to say that the RAC industry, refrigeration, air conditioning, heat pump industry, is one of the most highly legislated, regulated sectors, which is good in many ways. But on the other hand, I think sometimes the legislation doesn't take into account the time it requires for my manufacturers of heat pumps or ACs or refrigerants to make that transition.
Okay.
We all agree we have to make that transition. That's not the issue anymore. The issue is the speed at which we do it, but also that we do it very well.
Okay, of course.
And I think it's all about, you build a house, there's a foundation. If that foundation is really good and solid, the rest will gradually build itself and the house will stay, standing for many years. And I think the challenges we're faced with as the industry is, simply put, in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, which refrigerant can I use? Okay, so I look at the F-gas regulation, and it looks like there's a ban on HFCs in this particular chiller. Okay, but then could there be a review of the F-gas regulation?
Okay.
And this morning we talked about there are possible reviews, especially around the 2030 mark.
Okay.
If it's a heat pump, will they release more quotas for HFCs?
Okay.
Or do I make the shift straight away? So there is a real uncertainty. And there is one side of the coin which says, well, don't worry, you've got natural refrigerants. So propane, ammonia, CO2, water. And unfortunately, I think that these natural refrigerants, and don't get me wrong, all my members use them, okay? And it's not about not wanting to use them, but it's whether they're all usable, applicable in the types of uses you want and in the applications. And I think there are people out there who want to simplify. You can ban HFCs because natural refrigerants work. Unfortunately, it's never as simple as that, and the devil's in the detail. So, propane is proving very efficient. Yes, in a monoblock heat pump, sitting outside a house with lots of room around. But are you able, will you take the risk of, say, using propane in a split air conditioning unit or multi in a big household or in a block of apartments? There are, of course, building rules against that. So as you look at it, the flammability, the safety, the energy efficiency, there are a lot of questions. And so I think our industry sometimes is criticized for being almost like the anti-natural refrigerants. No, we're not. We're for them. We understand the environmental benefits, but it's the time it requires. And you can't just take a bit of HFC out of one and just stick some propane in. Sorry if I'm simplifying it, but there is a very bottom line that these equipment need to be totally changed. So it's the timing of that transition which is key. But on top of F-gas, you've got PFAS, as I've mentioned, and then you've got the politics of the EU, which I give you a very simple example. They would like us to put in place 60 million heat pumps in Europe by 2030. Now, do I use a heat pump with some very good low GWP HFCs, but they probably will be banned soon? can I use propane or what? So the industry is being pushed to get heat pumps out there as quickly as possible, but what's really available, what can we use? And I think it's fair to say my members do everything they can not to take any risks. People's lives are there. The PFAS dossier, which some claim, will ban HFCs and anything to do with PFAS and TFAs, is not going to go away. We will get bans, that's for sure. But again, the timing is complex. And hence, industry is faced with a clear lack of timing. So what do? And then there's the view that, if you go to Isch or Chilvento, you see a lot of natural refrigerants in different equipment. But they're sitting there on a wall. It doesn't mean they're already in the marketplace or they're even commercialized yet. So I think hopefully that gives you an understanding that it's just simply incredibly complex. And it's a balancing act. Life is a balancing act. So I think an event like you do every year is crucial because it brings, all the players in the rack industry, rack HP industry, to discuss. And I think yesterday's discussion when we talked about PFAS, that got some emotion and some passion going, which is good. I think we need to listen to each other and understand, everybody. By understanding, I think you can start to make better legislation and better policy. I think going forward, to be fair, I think the F-gas regulation is working well. We know what the rules are, but as you probably know, there will be reviews in 2030 and 2040, definitely. Sure. Maybe not 27 anymore for the mobile machinery. For refrigeration, that probably will be moved into the 2030. But the fact there are reviews foreseen, and obviously the Commission has to look at it into detail, does question, well, is it because there's a doubt that there needs to be a review? So again, will there be a review? Will it be a new change of legislation? Again, uncertainty and doubt. I don't have the solution to come to you and say, if we did this, this and that, we'd sort it all out. So I think we have to work with it. But I think today, and I think seen at this conference, decision makers, operators, gas producers are sitting together and talking to each other. And there is, I think, less tension in the air than perhaps when we were all looking at the decision-making process of the F-gas going through. Politics are changing rapidly in Europe. Don't get me wrong, environment, climate change is still high up on that political agenda. But you've also got, I think, an understanding now that the European politicians need to help us, industry, to make our industry generally more competitive. So they've got a tough challenge to say, okay, we want you to be very competitive, but we also want you to be very green. If we'd been here 2-3 months ago, you could have asked me, is the Green Deal over? Are we less green in Europe? Mm-hmm. No, we're not. But I think there's been a rebalancing that we need to help industry be competitive, especially at a time of geopolitical problems. I'm not going to say what they are. I think we can all guess at it, where industry competition is getting tougher and tougher for us in Europe. So I just finish off because I promised I wouldn't speak for 3 or 4 minutes. Again, thank you obviously very much for inviting me as the representative of EPEE. And I guess, the F-gas regulation, PFAS, and other issues, I'm sure will be hot topics even in 2 years' time. So on that note, thank you very much, Silvia.
Thank you, Russell, for your point of view. And it's really inspiring also to continue the discussion forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.